With you guys today, DJonai Carrington. After clotheslining Sophie Cunningham, running into the locker room, screaming, "That's white privilege!" Then tweeting 8/23, threatening Sophie Cunningham and the Indiana Fever. DJonai Carrington now comes out and clarifies what she means when she says white privilege for the Indiana.
So with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, DJonai Carrington just slapped the dog shit out of Sophie Cunningham. Sophie pops up. She's obviously upset. DJonai says, "Try me." And then look at Stephanie White. Look at her face. Look. She's mad as shit. Now, number one, this is obviously a flagrant 2. It just is. By the letter of the law, you got to call a flagrant 2. We all know these refs are not.
That girl needs to be thrown out the league. She's not even a good enough player to be bringing this type of drama. She needs to be thrown out.
DJ Carrington got ejected from a game, and instead of just letting it go, she decided the internet needed a lesson. Not an apology.
Decided the internet needed a lesson. Not an apology, not an explanation, just 2 words dropped straight from the locker room. White privilege. And now, days later, she's still out here defending that post, backtracking, clarifying, and arguing with basically anyone who dares to push back on it.
This one has turned into a
full-blown mess. And honestly, it might be one of the strangest
reactions we've seen from a WNBA player all season.
Sophie Cunningham, otherwise known as MAGA Barbie in the WNBA, is a superstar player. She's one of the most famous female athletes in the world because she stood up for women in women's sports, saying only biological women should be allowed to play in the WNBA. And for that, she is literally risking her life. Check this out. This is what happened to Sophie Cunningham last night when she was clotheslined by a filthy, dirty player for Chicago who has a name that I can't pronounce, or maybe I just refuse to do that. That's my right as an American. But this is a player that has attacked Caitlin Clark, gouged her eye out, that has now bloodied the face of Sophie Cunningham. And as soon as she did this, she tweeted white privilege, meaning she's declaring this is a race crime. Now, if a white woman was doing this to black women, it'd be the #1 story in the world. She'd be banned from the league forever. But somehow black women are allowed to get away with this against white women. And it's white women in the league who make themselves a target by simply standing up for traditional values and common.
Sophie Cunningham has spent this entire season being one of the more outspoken defenders of her Fever teammate Caitlin Clark, going on record multiple times saying the league and the officials do not do enough to protect Clark from the physical treatment she gets every single night. She's called out specific plays, specific players, and even said flat out that some teams have talked in their own locker rooms about wanting to show Clark what the W really is. That kind of talk does not exactly make you popular around the league. And Cunningham has never really hidden the fact that she knows sit.
Goo! That's assault, brother. You can't do that. What the fuck? Is this just the default if you can't think? Or if you just don't want to take accountability for your actions? Oh my god, this league, bro, this league. Bro, white privilege while you're wearing a bleach blonde dyed wig. I mean, the fuck? What is privileged about that? You stone cold Steve Austin clotheslined her ass. What about that is white privilege? The WNBA stays undefeated. It truly does. They can't get out of their own way.
That history matters here because it helps explain why so many people watched this specific foul and immediately assumed there was something more going on than just a hard basketball play. Cunningham has already positioned herself as one of the players willing to speak up about how Clark gets treated on the floor, and now she's the one on the receiving end of a forearm to the face that drew blood. Whether Carrington intended any of that subtext or not, the optics of the entire situation practically wrote themselves the second the ejection happened.
It's beyond concerning at this point how far from the plot we have actually gotten. And when I say the plot, I mean the basketball. How far from the game of basketball we have spiraled. When we're talking about the WNBA, we used to joke, it's like, 0 days without drama in the WNBA. This league is living up to it at a rate and a level of concern that we haven't ever had. with all the
craziness going on in the WNBA. DJonai Carrington tweeted out white privilege from the locker room of a game that she was playing in. Get this, she fouls Sophie Cunningham hard. Sophie Cunningham, obviously a white person, fouls her hard. Flagrant 2, gets ejected, goes to the locker room and tweets out white privilege in the middle of the game. Now here's the kicker to me. A flagrant 2 has to be contact that can lead to an injury that looks excessive. DJonai, it was about as excessive as possible. If there was any evidence of there being white privilege, this was not it. What the hell do y'all?
And it's not just Cunningham who's noticed the tension. Legendary broadcaster Dick Vitale weighed in earlier this year when Clark was voted only the 9th best guard in a league-wide player poll, calling the result absolutely pure jealousy and predicting that players around the league would eventually realize just how much Clark has done for all of them financially. That comment aged in a strange way once this Carrington situation broke. Because here you have another moment where a player closely tied to Clark and Cunningham takes real physical punishment. And instead of widespread sympathy from around the league, you get a former teammate publicly celebrating it and a head coach softly defending the aggressor. It's hard to watch that pattern repeat itself and not wonder if Vitale was onto something.
Right across the face, coming down, trying to prevent the layup, but that is just a hard hit. That's definitely going to be upgraded, I think, to a flagrant 2, Ryan.
I think that is going to be a flagrant 2. There is
Get what you fucking deserve.
And just getting her out of the
Lucky
way.
it wasn't a right hook.
Make no mistake about it, Carrington targeted Cunningham. She targeted her because of her political stances. She targeted Cunningham because of the praises that she keeps receiving. She targeted her with a dirty shot that had absolutely nothing to do with basketball. And then after getting ejected, she runs to the locker room to play the fucking victim card. Like she didn't try to just take off Cunningham's head in 4K. Like we all didn't just watch it happen. That is not competition. That is a grown woman swinging on someone who she disagrees with and then screaming racism when she gets held accountable for it. DJonai Carrington needs to be held responsible, and I'm not talking about just getting ejected from the game. She deserves a suspension. Maybe she'll think twice next time before she tries to take somebody's fucking head.
Here's what actually happened on the court, because the play itself is not complicated at all once you actually watch it. Sophie Cunningham was flying down the floor on a fast break, wide open, going up for what should have been an easy layup. DJ Carrington came from behind, chasing the play, and instead of contesting the shot, she caught Cunningham with a forearm straight across the face and neck. Cunningham hit the floor hard. The ball somehow still went in, but nobody was talking about the bucket after that. Officials stopped play, went to the monitor, upgraded the call to a flagrant 2, which under WNBA rules means an automatic ejection. No debate needed there. Wind up, impact, follow through, high risk of injury, player in a vulnerable position. That's the checklist for flagrant 2, and this play checked every single box.
Like the way Sophie Cunningham came down on her leg, she could have been injured. So they said, yo, get out of here, dog. Get out of here. Then, I don't know if y'all were looking at her lips. She was talking about, try me. Yo, you already tried Sophie? You got all the samples of Sophie. You talking about try me. What are you talking about? This lady is unhinged right now, man. This is crazy work. And it makes you wonder. It's like, dog, you were the best player for the Sky at this moment. Look how she landed on the leg. Oh my goodness. Like, you were the best player for the Sky, and you decided to do this? You weren't even thinking about the game. You was thinking about some kind of revenge or something. Somebody sent you on a mission. You were on a mission, dog. I don't know what you had going on here, but DJonai, this is unacceptable. Disrespectful, disgusting, and I'm glad they got you up out of there.
Cunningham got up immediately, and you could see the anger all over her face. She got right up in Carrington's space before teammates and officials pulled the two of them apart. And here's something worth pointing out, because it says a lot about how this league treats reactions differently depending on who's doing the reacting. The officiating crew chief actually said post-game that Cunningham was not penalized for her response because the reaction was deemed acceptable given the severity of the contact. She just took to the face. So even the referees in the moment basically confirmed with their own words that what happened to her was serious enough to justify her getting heated about it.
A photo from the flagrant 2 on DJonai Carrington against Sophie Cunningham, where she proceeded to go into the locker room and tweet white privilege after being thrown out of the game. I'm not going to comment on that situation, but I will say this. This is a flagrant 2. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, don't matter. This is a flagrant. I mean, she clotheslined her. What more do you want? So this looks very bad. It just shows that the WNBA is nowhere near where they need to be professionally, because again, this is a clothesline. It's flagrant 2.
That's the part that makes everything Carrington said afterwards so confusing. If the officials themselves are saying the contact was excessive and unnecessary, and if they're saying Cunningham's reaction to getting hit in the face was completely understandable, then where exactly does race enter this conversation at all? Nobody upgraded that foul because of who threw it or who received it. They upgraded it because a player got hit across the head and neck going up for a shot. And that is a rule that applies to every single player in that league, regardless of who they are.
Even mention the fact that she said white privilege. That is the story. The story isn't that she got kicked out. It's that she tweeted out white privilege as though because Sophie Cunningham is white, somehow that's why she got kicked out. They go on to defend her, the story, the narrative that she's not a dirty player. She makes plays like this all the time. I put together a little clip of DJ Carrington, who is definitely one of the dirtiest players in the WNBA. I don't know if we can roll it, but she's taken her long fingernails. She's scratched Caitlin Clark's eyes out. She's had multiple instances of chasing people down from behind, trying the same swat and smashing them in the head and causing mini fights. She pulled another girl's hair. I don't know if we'll get to that clip in a second when she's falling. Totally dirty play. This is not a skin color thing. She has a history of making dirty plays, and it's fine. The NBA, you can be a rough and tumble league. Now, where this thing gets absolutely bananas is when you start making it into a race and culture war, and the people talking about it are not mentioning 99% of the time that she went back and tweeted white privilege. White privilege how?
But instead of just accepting the ejection and moving on, Carrington went straight to her Threads account and posted white privilege, tagging the Indiana Fever directly underneath it. No further explanation at the time, just those 2 words sitting there for the entire internet to interpret however they wanted. And of course, everybody interpreted it the same way, because how else are you supposed to read that timing? She gets ejected for hitting a white player in the face, and within minutes, white privilege shows up on her page tagging that exact team. It doesn't take a genius to connect those dots, and pretty much the entire sports world connected them instantly.
We are paying attention to what DJonai Carrington did to Sophie Cunningham. It was not a race-based decision. And to call that a white privilege-based foul is to completely undermine the term of white privilege and to also completely ignore the rules in basketball. You hit her in the head, you drew blood, you didn't connect with the ball at all whatsoever. So to me, it was just very ignorant and to some degree asinine by DJonai Carrington to suggest that that call was based on white privilege. Have we seen examples of white players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. Have we seen examples of black players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. There was no white privilege involved in that specific call. DJonai, you hit her in the head and you drew blood. It was a
That's when Emmanuel Aiko stepped in, and honestly, he did not hold back. On his show, he laid out exactly why this had nothing to do with race and everything to do with basketball rules. He pointed out that the foul was called the way it was called because Carrington hit Cunningham in the head, drew blood, and never made a single bit of contact with the actual basketball. He said we've seen white players get away with fouls like that before, and we've seen black players get away with fouls like that before too, which means this specific call was never about color of anybody's skin. Aiko didn't stop there either. He called the whole thing ignorant and asinine. Strong words, but words that matched exactly how a lot of analysts and fans were feeling watching this unfold in real time. What makes Aiko's breakdown land so hard is that he didn't just say Carrington was wrong. He basically caught her in real time, exposing the fact that this looked exactly like someone reacting emotionally in the heat of the moment and then trying to intellectualize it after the fact once the backlash started rolling in. He pointed out correctly that plenty of hard fouls happen across every possible combination of players in this league. White on white, black on black, white on black, black on white, and none of the other ones ever get labeled with a phrase that heavy. Singling this one out in the exact minute she got ejected, tagging the exact team of the player she hit, and calling it white privilege was never going to read as anything other than what everybody assumed it was. And this is where things got genuinely wild, because instead of letting that criticism roll off her back, Carrington fired right back at Aiko with a response that somehow made the whole situation even more confusing than it already was. Her exact words were,
"I've never once claimed that the assessment of the foul was white privilege. That was your assumption. Try exercising your critical thinking skills. I know you studied psych. Furthermore, I'm the last thing from ignorant or asinine when it comes to speaking on white privilege. Do your research on that one. I actually went to school, one of the top universities, might I add, to educate myself on this exact subject. I would never use that term as a rhetorical weapon, knowing the historical and social weight it holds, without having the proper evidence to substantiate."
She's essentially saying that when she posted white privilege directly underneath a video of her getting ejected for fouling a white player and directly tagging that player's team, nobody was supposed to connect that to the ejection at all. That's the part that just doesn't add up. If the post wasn't about the foul, what exactly was it about? She posted it seconds after leaving the court, right after the review, right after the ejection, tagging the team of the player she just fouled. The timing alone tells the story, and no amount of talking about critical thinking skills changes what everybody watching that sequence unfold actually saw with their own eyes.
Hey, you can't act as though you discovered the moon. You can't act as though you are the genius in a room and everybody else is idiotic. What I mean by that is, if you are going to suggest that we should think critically about a statement, white privilege, when you at the Indiana Fever, you didn't give us much to think critically about. You uttered a phrase, white privilege, of which is both incredibly inflammatory and also a very volatile word, but you didn't give us any context. So now we, as the interpreter, since you posted it publicly on Threads for the world to see, we, the interpreter, now have to try to figure out what exactly were you talking about? Well, common sense would deduce that you were talking about fouling a white individual and getting ejected for fouling that white individual. Now, as I said on social media and I will say in real life, if that is not what you were talking about implying, then that's on me. I will stand down and I will stand corrected. But the last thing I must again reiterate, we live in a speaker-oriented country. Speaker-oriented, receiver-oriented. Speaker-oriented country. It is on you, the speaker, to be clear, to be direct, and to be obvious with what you are speaking about. It is not on the receiver, the reader, or the listener.
Aiko clearly wasn't buying the walk back either. He responded on social media with a healthy dose of sarcasm, basically saying, "Fine, if you say the two things weren't connected, I'll stand corrected." But America is a speaker-oriented country, meaning the burden was on her to be clear in the first place instead of leaving two loaded words hanging out there for millions of people to interpret. And that's really the core problem with this entire saga. You cannot drop a phrase as heavy as white privilege immediately after a controversial ejection, tag the exact team involved, and then get upset when people assume it was about the ejection. That's not people jumping to conclusions unfairly. That's people reading exactly what was right in front of them.
Sid Colson is saying this, and I know it's a joke. Love a trans foul. This is essentially celebrating a player getting clobbered. You are on TV. You are. Not these other people online. You are. You were on TV basically saying Caitlin Clark was soft for taking a fist to the neck from Alyssa Thomas. You are. You got opportunities because of this organization. You got opportunities because of the like Caitlin Clark brought on your head. You did. You benefited from it. You joined the Indiana Fever for those benefits. You took those benefits. You became more notorious. And then as soon as you leave, you rejoin the sisterhood. Then it's against Caitlin Clark. And you are celebrating a player getting taken.
Now here's where the story gets even stranger, because Carrington wasn't the only voice cheering this on. Sydney Colson, who actually played alongside Cunningham on the Fever just last season, posted her own reaction to the foul, writing that she loved it. A former teammate, someone who was in the locker room with Cunningham, watching her get hit across the face and neck hard enough to draw blood, and instead of any concern, she's celebrating it publicly. That tells you everything you need to know about how divisive Sophie Cunningham and the entire Fever situation has become around this league. This isn't just outside noise from rival fans anymore. This is coming from inside the building, from people who used to sit in the same locker room.
I mean, look, it was a hard foul. I don't think that DJonai intentionally came out to get her across the neck like she did, but it did happen, and I thought it was the right call. But, you know, one of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And so I don't oppose the hard foul. But I also don't think that she intentionally went for the neck.
And even Fever head coach Stephanie White, Cunningham's own coach, didn't exactly go to bat for her player the way you'd expect. White told reporters afterward that she didn't think Carrington intentionally went for the neck, but that she had no issue with a hard foul itself, saying Carrington was just competing and that nobody should expect an easy layup against her. That's a strange thing to hear from the coach of the player who just got hit in the face hard enough to bleed. These two players, more than almost anyone else in the WNBA right now, are responsible for the explosion in viewership, ticket sales, and mainstream attention the league has ever seen. Networks are scheduling around their games. Arenas that used to be half empty are selling out because fans want to see them play. And yet, over and over again this season, you see moments like this one, where instead of players and even coaches protecting that momentum, some of them seem almost eager to push back against it, whether that's through hard fouls, cheap shots, or public comments cheering when something physical happens to either of them.
Has literally been dragged. She's been called every name but a child of God. Coaches have come out and spoken against her. Fans have come out in the name of calling Sophie Cunningham anti-trans and transphobic. It's not far-fetched to say that the league itself in totality does not like Sophie Cunningham. And yet, after intentionally grabbing Sophie Cunningham around her neck and getting ejected for that, DJonai runs to Twitter to say the reason why she was ejected was because of the white privilege Sophie Cunningham, a white, straight female, carries in a basically 80% black, almost 90% LGBTQ-led league. Oh yeah, that's where Sophie Cunningham is getting her white privilege, in this WNBA minstrel show of a freaking basketball league. That's where her white privilege is starting to show. DJonai Carrington, you're a fucking joke. You went up thinking that you were going to get the ball. You knew that you weren't anywhere near getting the ball. And so while you were up in the air, you figured this was your chance to grab her, Sophie Cunningham, around her neck and bring her down by her neck.
It's a bizarre dynamic when you actually stop and think about it. The players benefiting the most from the financial windfall Clark and Cunningham have brought to this league are, in some cases, the same ones seemingly rooting against them the hardest. Bigger paychecks, bigger crowds, bigger television deals, all of it tracing back, in large part, to the attention these two specific players generate. And still, the reaction from a chunk of the league is closer to resentment than gratitude. Carrington's foul, her original post, her drawn out back and forth with Aiko, Colson's celebration of the hit, White's soft defense of her own player's aggressor, no less. Race was never part of that equation, no matter how many words get typed, trying to retroactively make it seem like it was never about the ejection in the first place. Carrington can talk about critical thinking skills and top universities all she wants, but the timing of that original post did the talking long before her clarification ever showed up. And clarifications after the fact rarely undo what everybody already saw for themselves in real time.
Have one of your players who commits a clear flagrant 2 and then tweets white privilege right after she goes to the locker room. You can't then cry that this is being talked about in racial terms in a culture. She started that. This is a basketball play. The second you go white privilege, and they are talking about it on these telecasts without mentioning what she tweeted. Oh, they're turning into a culture war, turning into a race war. This is our league. Don't let conservatives or the right hijack it. Your player tweeted white privilege, and it had nothing.
This is where the WNBA finds itself now. Caught between celebrating the biggest ratings boom the league has ever seen and dealing with a locker room culture where some of the very players benefiting from that boom seem determined to push back against the two names driving it. Carrington's ejection was clean, the officiating got it right, and the review process worked exactly the way it's supposed to. What happened after the whistle, the post, the backpedal, the argument with Ocho, the cheering from a former Fever teammate, that's the part off the story that isn't going away anytime soon, and it's the part that says far more about where this league is right now than any single flagrant foul ever.